It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, we've got a question from George on Facebook. He says, I have a college fund building up for my soon-to-be 6-year-old daughter. Given how high college tuition is right now and how almost dime a dozen college degrees are, is a college degree a worthwhile investment for your child? And are other means of certification viable in the future?
All right, guys, if y'all, one of y'all bring the soapbox over here. I'm going to step away.
Put it in front of Brian.
It's so bad. I didn't know what you were going to say. It is.
We have a lot of conversation around this.
We do have a lot.
Tons of conversation.
Y'all know I am super energized about education because I attribute a lot of not coming from money to now having money. The ladder that helped me climb to that higher level is on the back of education. So education has such a high level, and that's one of the things that motivated us to even create this content. So it makes me so sad to now see, and I use this, and y'all didn't like this analogy, but I'm going to use it again because I think it's that powerful. College, in a lot of ways, has turned into a Hansel and Gretel's house where you just don't eat too much candy in there. And I don't care how good the dorm rooms are. I don't care about, if you go across state lines and you pay out-of-state tuition, you might get yourself where you are straddled with so much student loan debt. And don't overlook community colleges to start off your first years. Don't pay a special attention to what your child will focus on in careers, because we know the STEMs do well, with any type of engineering, any type of finance. Those things have a great return on your investment. You want to come out of college with no more than 1 year, meaning what's your first year salary going to be out of college. Try to keep your student loan debt below that so it's manageable. It breaks my heart when people choose majors that they come out of college and there's really zero chance based upon their earnings that they're going to be able to pay that back in a very prompt period of time. So pay attention to that. But here's what I want to tell George, because he has a 6-year-old. It's a lot of life that's going to happen before your child goes off to college. I still think you ought to prepare for it, because guess what? 529 specifically can be used K through 12. They can be used not only for college, but they also can be used for trade schools, because even if they don't go to college, more than likely your child's going to need some after-school training of some sort. I mean, we work with a lot of very wealthy business owners that made their fortunes in trades, so it's something to definitely think about. So, but George, there's nothing wrong with going ahead and using the tools like 529s, even if you're a skeptic on education, because I think there's going to still be a way for you to utilize and maximize that money for your 6-year-old's future. But I do think, and I'll get off the soapbox, but it does make me sad that something so powerful, and I think there is a reckoning or a change that's coming, because these colleges have gotten a little ahead of themselves on, and like I said, and maybe some of my anger on this comes from having an 18-year-old in the house, and I see all the solicitation that is coming in the mail. They're selling education like it's a timeshare, and then now that she's graduated high school, I'm getting all the solicitations for student loan debt, and I'm like, somebody needs to bring this all back to where education is once again centered to be that ladder of opportunity that I have the nostalgia and I've used for myself. I want to make sure we're not taking advantage of that goodwill and the greatness of education to really enrich some other people to where we're getting this bitterness between young people versus old people, because it shouldn't be that my education costs $3,000 a year. Yours costs significantly more. Daniel, we all went to the same school, by the way, but it's just, that's a little weird that colleges have been way above inflation.
Ribby, will you tell, what was George's, the very end of his question? I missed that. What was the actual question that he had? I mean, I've got he's saving for college. Was he asking, like, should I keep saving? What was the crux of the question?
Yeah, his crux of the question was, is the college degree worth the investment? But also, are there other means of certification that would be viable in the future? So, like, is college the only option?
Perfect. All right,
Probably not.
In my opinion, this is opinion, so write this in pencil as you're taking notes. I think something has to change with the cost of college. If it continues to inflate at the way that it has and people keep borrowing the way that they have, the entire system's going to blow up on itself. Eventually get to the point to where college costs $500,000 a year to go to and nobody's going to be able to afford it, right? So then supply and demand will kick in. There is not enough demand for it, so the supply will decrease. There'll have to be a shift. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how long it's going to take for that to happen. But something has to change, right? I just think that there's enough noise in the system that something has to change. And then the other thing, and by the way, these are things I'm thinking about for my young girls who are a number of years away from college. I think something has to change with the cost of college. I also think that the need for a degree or the need for types of degrees will likely change inside the workforce, right? There might be specific certifications, associate's degrees, fill in the blank. The traditional 4-year degree as a necessity for college may change in the coming lifetime. I don't know if that's the case. Whenever I am approaching financial decisions with big unknowns, I try not to be too specific and too assured that I 100% know the right answer. Here's what I think will likely happen. No matter what goes on with the cost of college or with my daughter's need for a college degree, I'm gonna have to pay for something, right? I'm probably gonna have to pay for something. So my wife and I are targeting to save inside of an education account a fraction of what we estimate the cost will be. We're not trying to hit 100%. We're not assuming that college costs inflate at 10% per year every year for the next 12 years. We're not assuming that things that they have to have a 4-year degree from an Ivy League institution. We're just assuming, hey, we're going to have some sort of cost. And so what's a reasonable amount of money for us to build up inside of these tax incentivized vehicles for them to be able to use for education? And then I'm going to stay constantly abreast of the job market, right? Like, am I, when I was coming through back in my day, college was like it was just what you did. Like you had, like not had to do it, but it was the natural next step in progression. I don't know if 20 years from now that's still going to be the case. I don't know if we see so many people now. Daniel, you have to correct me on this statistic. How many people is it now that are working in a field that does not match the degree that they got from college, right? It's like this large percentage.
It's like 74%
of workers. Eventually, the workforce is going to catch on that, okay, maybe the degree does not matter as much as some other thing. So I think there's likely going to be some sort of shift in that space. So as a parent trying to navigate that, trying to plan for that, I'm going to do the best I can with what information I have, just so I can kind of get in the ballpark.
So, George, I'll put this out, and I hate that because I love when I get to put up a thumbnail of a great show we've done in the past that covers this, and we've done a lot of education shows, but I know in the hopper right now, we have a show that will be coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks on specifically this topic. And there's so many things that were firing in my brain because I know the research that Daniel and I have been doing behind the scenes with what's the cost of all the financial aid that the government put in starting in the 70s? And if you take the correlation of minimum wage of the average worker in the 70s to the cost of education, your mind's going to be blown so you can at least calibrate what's the value I'm getting for the cost and how do I navigate this well. We've got the content that's coming to you. And so please check back and stay in touch over the next 3 weeks because watch this content drop. We're going to answer all these questions and give you this perspective so that you can navigate this very, very high-tuned, goodwill moment of bettering yourself, bettering your family, and bettering your future. Let's make sure you're doing it right so you don't get strapped with debt that's going to that turns this thing against you in a very unfortunate way.